Hey there, friend. Welcome to Mindful Chatting, especially my private practice friends. We're going to talk about the part of private practice that really nobody really gets excited about. It's documentation. I have never met a therapist who got into this field and thought, what I'm really looking for is progress notes. But here's what's interesting. Most clinicians don't actually burn out from therapy. They burn out from everything else that comes after therapy. The notes, the billings, the emails, the paperwork, the administrative pile that seems to regenerate overnight. And if you're constantly feeling behind on your documentation, you may not have a motivation problem. You may have a systems problem because documentation doesn't have to be exhausting. But most clinicians were never taught how to make it sustainable. But don't worry, we're going to unpack it together. Welcome to Mindful Chatting, a podcast where therapy meets real life. I'm Kristen, a therapist, business owner, and a lifelong student of what it means to fully show up in our relationships, in our work, and in our healing. Here, we unpacked mental health concepts, explore mindfulness tools, and talk through the messy, beautiful, in-between moments that shape us. Whether you're a fellow clinician, a curious listener, or someone navigating your own growth, this space is for you. Let's chat. Here's the hidden costs of documentation. Most therapists underestimate how much energy documentation actually requires from them because it's not just writing, it's remembering the session, organizing all of the information that was discussed, all of our clinical decision-making skills, our treatment planning, and wording things appropriately, not only for us, but for insurance. You're asking your brain to shift from emotional processing to administrative processing multiple times throughout the day, and every shift comes at an energy cost. So let's think about the cognitive overload after each session. I want to talk about something that I think many clinicians experience but don't always name: post-session cognitive fatigue. After several sessions, your brain is holding on to stories and emotions and interventions and diagnoses and treatment goals. Then we expect ourselves to immediately sit down and write a clear, concise document about it. That's a lot of mental switching. And the more sessions you have in that day, the harder that switch becomes for you. If you want to understand your ADHD in a deeper way, I've created the ADHD Crash Course, and it walks you through ADHD step by step so that you can actually start understanding your brain and not shaming it. Everything's in small, doable lessons designed for your ADHD in mind. The link is in the show notes. This is where perfectionism is really slowing you down. This is probably one of the biggest reasons therapists spend too much time on notes. It's perfectionism. Questions like, did I word that correctly? Did I include enough? What if insurance audits this? What if I forgot something? And before you know it, a note that should probably take you about 3 minutes takes about 15 minutes. And the reality is that most notes are communication documents, not novels, not dissertations, and not clinical masterpieces. The goal is to be accurate, ethical, and clinically relevant, not perfect. That's it. This is where I want to talk about my own evolution when it comes to documentation. I remember spending so much time trying to write the perfect note because I wanted to prove that I was competent and I knew what I was doing. I want to discuss how I use a lot of templates. So when it comes to certain sessions, I think about certain interventions or certain modalities that I naturally use: CBT, EFT, DBT. I want you to think about certain templated statements that can help you formulate a thought. A lot of these are mostly sentence stems, so I can make sure that I'm checking off each box of what's important. I'm also maybe making templates of different interventions so that I can speak to them and writing them out in a sentence stem way so that I can start a thought. So for an example could be like, the client used downward arrow to express one of their core beliefs by, and that may be the sentence stem. And that just helps me formulate of, oh yeah, I did do downward arrow with them. This is me addressing it. This is the core belief that we talked about. That could be a way of using templated things without sounding like the same note over and over again. I want you to think about how AI can support you in this. Now, everybody in this field right now is kind of getting a lot of pressure to use AI to write your notes. Now, I want to make sure that my voice and what I'm doing is very present in my note because eventually I'm going to have to speak to it. So, AI is very wonderful to take sentence and bullets and formulate them in a flowing type of way. A lot of EHR systems, like TherapyNotes is the one I use, has AI built into the progress note, which means I can write what I want to write in there. And then AI takes it and flows it and makes sure that I have the necessary statements that talks about the subjective, the objective, medical necessity, diagnosis statements, and it fills it in for me. Now, of course, as always with AI, you want to proofread before you just hit submit and move on with your life. But it helps build a skeleton for you to come in and maybe add or change things to make writing a note that probably would take you 15 minutes, might take you 5 now. I also want you to think about batching. And this is where theme days are really important when you have a private practice. You might want to save writing all of your notes all at one time. Because I was talking about that mental shifting. If you're going from one client and then into the note, that might be really helpful for you because it just happened. But for me, I want to regulate because the next client's usually waiting in the waiting room for me. So it's not so much about, I need to hurry up and write this note. That probably won't be my best version of the note anyway. And instead, maybe getting some food in, going to the bathroom, regulating myself before I move into the next client. And then on days, I batch all of my notes for the day prior. So it's still fresh in my head, but I'm doing it in a batched way so I can switch from writing notes and using some of my templates to help me write the note that I really want to write, not what I'm cramming in between sessions. We have to think about what's realistic when it comes to our documentation expectations. And I want you to think about that when you're creating these sentence stems. I want you to help you use AI to help you create them. If you're not into using AI completely, there's still ways that you can use AI to help you build more clinical relevance in your note and still have your voice in it.
For any clinicians tuning in, if insurance billing is the part of your practice that drains your soul, Headway will be your best friend. They get you credentialed, send you referrals, manage your billing, submit your claims, all the stuff none of us went to grad school for. It's free to join, and honestly, it's been a huge support for therapists who want to take insurance without drowning in the administration part. My link is in the show notes if you want to check it out.
I think a lot of clinicians have a lot of common things, such as workflow problems that happens. So think about it. Your session ends, you answer an email, you maybe check a text, grab a water, talk to someone, look at your schedule, and then eventually you're trying to remember what happened in that session. The problem isn't the note. The problem is all of these interruptions because documentation is easiest when context is still fresh. So I don't know about you, but as a clinician, I take notes during my session. And so I would rather have that note be something that I can reflect on and go back to when I'm coming back and batching all of my documentation together than trying to conjure up what I did that might have been even 24 hours ago. This is a really important distinction because people often think that I need to work harder, but a better question is, how can I make this easier for myself? So examples could be note templates like we talked about, session structure templates like maybe having notes on your iPad or printed out versions so that you're making sure that you're touching on all of your things as you're going through your session. It could be that AI assisted documentation that I was talking about. It could be dictation. So a lot of the things that I do is I'll put on my microphone and I'll dictate what happened. And then I have AI help me write it in a way that makes more clinically relevant. Again, using standardized sentence stems that kind of help you jog your memory and make sure that you're touching on appropriate things, and then batching all of these administrative tasks so you have less switching and shifting that's going on in your head, which will drain you less about your energy. The goal isn't about more effort. The goal is about less friction in that effort. One of the biggest clinical mistakes that I think therapists makes is switching roles constantly. So we have this clinical role, we have our administration role, we have our financial role, we have our marketing role, and then we're back to their clinical role again. Every switch costs you a lot of emotional drain. And this is where batching our work is so important. So examples could be having a documentation block of time during your day. It could have an email time of block of day. I don't know about you, but I also get caught up in checking my email throughout the day. But sometimes that might not be the most effective use of my time. It might be better to check my email maybe 2 or 3 times a day and have blocks of time when I do that. Another could be a financial block where I'm opening up all my books and I know how many sessions I should have that week. Instead of constantly switching all day, knowing when things pop up or thoughts pop up of I should check this, I already have a day scheduled and a time planned in my planner to check on those things for myself.
Here's a quick note for my clinicians listening. If you're looking for a charting and practice management system that doesn't make you want to scream, well, guess what? I use TherapyNotes. It's clean, reliable, HIPAA compliant, and honestly saves me hours every week. You can try it with my link in the show notes.
Another big thing that I did when I was a newbie clinician is I said this sentence to myself is, I'll do notes when I have time to do them. But that's usually the problem because when I have time becomes after dinner or before bed or on the weekends instead of actually scheduling documentation time, treating it like an appointment for myself. Because it doesn't have a place, it often doesn't happen, or I'm sliding it into my personal time. And that is not the reason why you went into private practice, is it? So remember, sustainability over productivity. This is the mindset shift that I want you to have when you think about your documentation. The goal isn't I need to get as much done or more done as possible. The goal is to reduce the amount of energy required of me to maintain what you're already doing. Because sustainability is always going to be intensity every single time. And this is why I talk so much about systems, whether it's planning systems, workflow systems, documentation systems. The goal isn't to become more disciplined, it's to create structures that reduce this mental load on you. Because your brain is way too valuable to spend all day recreating the same process over and over again. Documentation doesn't have to be exhausting, but most clinicians were never taught how to make it sustainable. And often the solution isn't just working harder, it's building a better system that works for you. And as always, be gentle with your mind.
One more thing before you go, and this helps me personally staying present and grounded, which we all need, especially when your brain wants to spiral into disconnection. Me too. It's Brain FM. It's musically designed to help ADHD brains, well, really anyone's brain, focus, relax, or sleep, and I use it almost daily. If you want to try it, I've dropped my link in the show notes. And if you're looking for planning tools or ADHD-friendly resources, I'll keep a list of my favorite links in every episode.